Welcome to B2B Marketing Methods. I'm your host, Terri Hoffman, and I'm the CEO of Marketing Refresh. Let's face it, embracing digital marketing is daunting. This podcast was created to make it more approachable. Join me as we talk to CEOs, sales leaders, and revenue growth experts who will share lessons learned and tips from their own journeys. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of B2B Marketing Methods. I am so excited today. Our guest is named jlee. Jason is a vice president at a company called Exponent. I'm going to let him tell you a little bit more about what Exponent does, but essentially they help work with private business owners to enhance the value of their business. A lot of services around that, a lot of different ways that they engage and help their clients, but that's really the heart and soul of what they do. I'm excited to have you on today, Jason. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So we've got some pretty exciting things to talk about today, especially with Jason's role and some of his past experiences. We're going to be talking about how he uses LinkedIn to build his own credibility in the market. We're going to be talking about a really cool phrase, mastering the art of getting people in a room, which is kind of a fun concept. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about that. Building relationships and really making that first. Trusting the process. I feel like that's like a LeBron James phrase. I like bringing that in.
Yeah.
Marketing conversation.
Kobe Bryant.
I love Kobe Bryant.
Go.
Cool. And then he's got some really cool personal initiatives that we're going to talk about. One thing that Jason and I share is we are both faith-based leaders. And so I can't wait to get into that part of the conversation too.
Neither can I.
Let's start with you introducing yourself, Jason. Tell us, elaborate a little bit more on your company and how you got led into that role.
So I spent the first 17 years of my life in the health industry, and then I moved into the wealth industry a little bit over a decade ago. Having gone from health to wealth, I went into a traditional investment advisory firm, mainly stocks and bonds, life insurance, that kind of thing. And then I actually had a really rough season, went through a divorce, went through some things. So the combination of trying to start a new career and going through all that kind of led me out of the business for a while, back to health. And then a guy that mentors me, his best friend's my boss. We were at a men's retreat and I was telling him a little bit about my testimony. And he said, well, why don't you come talk to me? And I said, man, I don't want to do chasing IRAs and all this other stuff. Like I felt like I don't have the bandwidth or the trajectory to do that. It's a long cycle. He said, man, we really do cool stuff for business owners. I think you might enjoy that. It sounds like you really look like entrepreneurs. And that's what I was telling him I was passionate about. And so came into his office, had the discussion. He kind of gave me a peek under the hood of what it is that they do and how they help people. And that was 7 years ago. And I was hooked. And so what we do, who we serve is the person, whose name is on the front of the building. And so we're a wealth management, meaning at our core. But when people hear wealth management, I think the default is to think, okay, stocks and bonds, life insurance. We do all of it. That's our bread and butter. But we lead, right? As an example, we lead. Every day we go into the marketplace with their business as our priority. And the reason being is it's typically their biggest asset. Usually amongst all, I was just with a guy who's growing his business. We can't rope him in. We've been working with him for 2 years, and so where like every time he sits down and he's like, okay, I've got $1 million coming in this year. And so we're like, finally, we're going to manage money. And then he's like, okay, I can't do that. we're going to grow here. We're going to this state. We're doing this. And I'm like, okay, well, never mind. So we're going to pivot. Let's adjust your strategies. But everything is designed around helping support his business and that need. And then we come behind with the whole other layer of services, business valuation, exit, retention of key people. Most people forget that talent's probably one of the second biggest asset. Ask a business owner what's more important, a 10% return on their portfolio or making sure that their top 3 people don't leave them.
Right.
And the business owner will be like, I'll take my top 3 people all day versus the ROI on my portfolio. So we specialize in that and then helping them figure out what's that exit going to look like someday. So we're investment bankers, CPA, wealth license, so securities license. So we kind of do all of that across that piece. And my role specifically, I'm a securities license advisor, but we built our firm a lot like a lot of service companies where we have specialists. So you have a wealth team, tax team, insurance team, planning team, and then me, I kind of lead as the spear tip when it goes into getting into the clients, servicing the clients, becoming their liaison, their relationship guy is kind of my role.
Yeah, I can see that, knowing your personality. So you have a highly regulated industry, right? And
Hmm.
so that comes with challenges when it comes to marketing because you've got to make sure that your message is very clear. And I know just on the compliance side, you've got to make sure that you're saying things that are within compliance, especially since you're personally licensed, right? I'm sure
Yes.
that creates some wrinkles when it comes to what you may want to say or what you may think gives you the best foot forward as you're marketing yourself versus what is acceptable and allowable to say. So I want to start with LinkedIn. Like, how do you view LinkedIn as a tool, and how do you temper what I was just talking about on the client side as you're thinking about your own personal LinkedIn strategy?
Well, a couple things. First thing is because we do so much work in the business space, I would say 90% of my communication is around business, which doesn't have, I mean, I'm rarely ever going into the marketplace leading with stocks and bonds because I have to put more compliance stuff around that.
Yeah.
It's a lot more red tape. And I'm trying to differentiate myself. While I want people to know that's a piece of what we do, if I'm typically getting brought into clients for things related to completely different stuff that we do. So fortunately, going into the marketplace has been a little easier than when all I did was make posts about the portfolio and the market and the return. That's completely different. Most of my stuff is around valuation, talent, growing your team, and things that people go, okay, wow, okay, this guy gets me as a business owner, because those are really the things that are more often challenged with. And they look at the app investment like, oh yeah, when I have some left over, I'll put it over here. And they get a Christmas card and they call their advisor if it's up with it, if it's down. Or really, they don't ever call them if it's up. They only call them if it's down. But
Right.
that's usually how that works. But my marketing is more driven around that. And then also something that I think has become very different in today's marketplace is that I would say 50% of my messaging is around that component. And then another 50% is just who I am. We mentioned faith, discipleship, relationships, connecting. I think what I've uncovered is people are looking at these platforms, and social media today is looking at platforms so that you can identify, do I like that person, right?
Yeah.
Or would I do business with that person? I have people who meet me all the time and go, yeah, I know about you. And I'm like, you don't really know me. You know of me. You know
Yeah.
what you think about me. But I try to ensure that everything that's going out into the marketplace and my communication is going to point back to, I'm not catfishing. People meet me, they go, okay, I'm this way.
Mhm.
Jason Lee, these are the things that he does well. I met with a business coach yesterday that I met virtually,
Mhm.
and he followed me for a while and never met the guy a day in my life. But at the end of our session, he goes, well, what I kind of learned about you from our time prior to this meeting is you're like these are the things that seem to be important to you. And, he hit the nail on the head, right? Like, so, and then even the better part is I actually asked ChatGPT, I said, analyze my profile and all my posts and then create a bio about
Yeah.
loves
That's
his
awesome.
family, loves
Yeah.
connecting others, So
Yeah.
I hope that kind of answers the question.
It does. It really does, because I think what I'm taking away from what you said is that you're using it more as a tool to build your personal brand and to establish your credibility and also connect, like find a message about you that is genuine and true that would then connect with a business owner who's part of your audience.
Absolutely.
I think that's really great to hear. I'm kind of curious to hear if you noticed a difference both within and externally once you started including things that were more personal in your posts. Because I think a lot of people are a little bit hesitant to take that step and to put things out that are more personal and putting
Right.
those on LinkedIn. Have you noticed a difference since you've made that change?
Well, I would say this, it's never not been part of my DNA. So
Okay.
unfortunately, that's just who I am. So
Yeah.
that being said, I'm always encouraging people that are way too vanilla that you've got to step out of your comfort zone, especially in today's environment, right? So people are trying to make a decision on who they're going to do business with, and they're typically going to need 7 to 8 touch points of making a decision. And in today's world, I'm not making a decision based on the website. I'm going to the website. I'm going to the ratings on Google, I'm going to their reviews, and then I'm going to their social media.
Yeah.
Right. I just put a new tenant in my house, in one of my rooms.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't just look at the background check. I went into their social media. Like,
Yeah.
you live in my house. And I'm like, okay, let me see what this person's about. Like, I want to know what they're doing. And if the picture was them, smoking weed on a Friday night with all their friends, I'm like, okay, I don't know if I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
They're making decisions every day using all the different data that's out in the universe. And so if your data isn't out there, meaning if you're not communicating who you are and what you're about, then, and people are left to guess what that is, they might pick somebody else because that person made it pretty transparent to figure it out.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Transparency is what people want. So why not just be who you are and then solve the problem? Here's the great people who don't like me, I don't have to worry about pursuing those clients.
Yeah.
That's great. Cool.
Yeah.
Make that easy.
Yeah. You want to work with people that have a similar mindset, similar set of values, and you'll
100%.
have a stronger working relationship, I think, when that
Absolutely.
happens. Well, how do you see that? You've talked a little bit about it, but I'd love you to elaborate a little bit on how you see your presence on LinkedIn then evolving into building a relationship with someone in person. I mean, you kind of gave that business coach example, but.
Great question. So I've been very fortunate through LinkedIn to have built on truly lifelong, meaningful relationships from. Great example. One guy, he's a LinkedIn savant, right? He's out there growing his business. I cold called him based on a post he made 5 years ago, right? He made a post. We could solve the problem. Got the courage, called his office, said, hey, you got 100 people chiming in that they want to do business with you. How many of them picked up the phone? He's like, your first one. I was like, then give me the business. And you like that kind of DNA. And so, we were able to do some of the business, but now we're very, very close friends and continue to sustain that.
I'm going to stop you for just a second, but I think it's really interesting. I want to really point out these details. You use LinkedIn to do research and kind of find out about that opportunity, but then you wove in a traditional tactic like calling, actually picking up the phone and calling
actually picking
someone.
up the phone. Yeah.
Right. And then figuring out how to take that to actually meeting in person and building a relationship.
One of the things that I do is so aside from that, using another tools, I have my brand going, but then behind that brand, I have a sales navigator, almost 1,000 CFOs. I have almost 1,000 business owners that I've targeted that are in the space. So I'm actually constantly ripping, never sell stuff, right? For example, I just left Washington last week, the week prior to with the Construction Association, talking about matters that were important in Washington for the industry. So guess what? I've got the bullet points from that discussion, and those bullet points are going to go out to all my contractors that I'm pursuing in LinkedIn. And we'll say, hey, I want to send you a summary of some discussions we had in Washington. So that'll go to, well, then they're going to get an invite to an event in a few months that's relevant to construction. I'll invite them to a barbecue or a workforce development breakfast. And then I'll peel them out and put them in a cold call list. When I do cold call them, I say, hey, Terri, it's Jason Lee. And they go, oh, yeah. Oh, hey, it's not cold.
Right.
They've got an invite. They got that note from me. Did you ever read that stuff I sent you about the work we were doing in Washington? Okay, well, is it okay if I tell you what I do actually for a living? Can I take a second to show you that with you? And there's so much more.
Yeah. You're giving them value before you try to talk to them about
Pitch
what you sell, so to speak.
100%.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to point out those.
No, that is the second part.
Okay. Okay, good.
The sales navigator components. The first part is the brand component. And I guess you would call the second part more of a marketing / actual traditional sales, right? And those people out, identify the ones you want to talk to, dripping on them, and then follow up with a call.
And I think that's really a key way that sales and marketing are really overlapping more and more, right? Because I use Sales Navigator every day too. It's such a powerful tool to make sure that you're really reaching out to people that fit your audience and that you can serve. But then figuring out how to message to them and how frequently to reach out, how much time you should leave in between, how to sequence that. Those are typically ways that a marketer would add value. And I think that a person who's in a development role now has to have those skills to be effective, right? You've got to figure out how to fuse those together and kind of build that skill set for yourself so that you don't always have to lean on a marketer, and a marketer doesn't always have to lean on a development person.
Yeah, in the perfect world, the two of them are working in collaboration, right?
Right.
And so now we're an evolving company, we're a growing organization here. And so I'm independent in the sense that I work for the company, but I still manage my own book. So I'm responsible for everything that I deliver and clients that I bring and taking care of them. So I didn't have time to wait to figure that out. So it was like, okay, I'm going to go figure out marketing now. Since then, I've added in an assistant who helps me do that. So I've built kind of that in. And then recently as an organization, we've brought in an actual marketing professional for the firm. And so, figuring out how can we take some of the work that I'm doing at a sales and marketing level and then peel that into an organizational lens. The real fit for me would be, what would be the best fit is if as a company, if you actually can bring marketing beside your sales team and say, okay, how can we work this efficiently with all the tools? Because early on, a lot of that was like building out the list and doing all that stuff. That's really not, I don't want to say that the marketing team or the administrative teams is low dollar, but it's not high dollar work. And where I'm at my absolute best is actually selling and, they don't want to pick up the phone and make that call. So I'm at my best doing that, not building lists. Early on as a solopreneur, essentially you're doing it all, right? So I was, staying up night, putting the list together. Then I eventually was making enough money, I could hire somebody, paying them to do it. But if you want to do, if I got out of this today and bought a business, one of the things I would do is grab my marketing team and then my sales team and say, hey, we're going to get you guys on the same page. Like, how do we have you guys working to row in the same direction?
A lot of times that's not happening. Absolutely. I think that's a key challenge, especially in the B2B space, is it's hard to determine where the lines are between what sales is responsible for and what marketing is responsible for. And instead of trying to figure out what's different, it's really identifying the shared goals and then how you split the responsibilities to reach, because they really are shared goals, right? To grow the company. And I think that sounds like such a simple concept, but I do think that a lot of business leaders maybe don't understand what marketing is capable of. They don't understand how the technology has evolved and how that should be fused into a traditional sales or business development, like what their typical job description has looked like traditionally and how those fuse together and who does what in order to maximize time to reach those goals. I mean, I hear that all from companies. And then on top of it, how do you even measure if it's working? I mean, that's like a whole other podcast episode that we could do. But it sounds like from what you're saying on a surface level, you are seeing that this strategy is working for you and it's getting you into the right conversations and positioning you correctly. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if what the challenge is when you're kind of on, and I'm only saying this because I don't have a benchmark, right? So meaning I don't have, when I was part of an actual organization that was built around sales and development, when I was in the health club industry, I could see myself against 2,000 other gyms, right? And so, or at one point in time, my territories against other territories. So I could say, yes, what I'm doing is working because I'm better than everybody. So I'm beating people. Here, I'm beating myself every month. Has my business grown every month? Yes. Have I gotten enough clients? Yes. We do sales contests and stuff. Do I win those? Yes. So yes, I guess it's working, right? Could it be better? I mean, maybe, am I constantly refining it? 100%.
Yeah.
Right. Especially now, right? With AI and figuring out how to make it more efficient, do those type of things. And then there's this slippery slope, right? Like, how do you make it efficient, but then keep your own voice? How do you make it authentic? What's the difference between using AI to supplement what you do, but not letting it? Because there was a moment where, like, as an example, I used AI to, every Monday I do recognition for somebody on my network. It's just something I wanted to start doing. Right? It was small, but like, I don't have to overthink that. So what I do is I take the notes from, like, let's say we met in a group in a setting together, and I would ask you questions as my referral partner, like your unique value proposition, these type of things. My note taker's taking those notes. So when I get done with that, I go to my note taker and say, hey, give me a little post about Terri and all of her things. So we would do that. And then, I got to where I was asking AI, okay, cool, we'll throw in some emojis and stuff. And it got really out of control. So what would happen, I was out of efficiency. I would do that until I got the feedback from my wife, who's my best partner. She said, hey, dude, like, that's way over the top. Right. And I'm not really paying attention to it, but I was like, okay, now here's the truth. I should totally use AI to write that because it's not stealing a voice. It's like, hey, we just had the conversation. give me Terry's unique value prop. I'll write the first part that says, Terry's been a great friend. We've been connected for a while. I'm glad to have that. And here's her unique value proposition. Bam, 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 bam. Like, I don't need to type that out. Throw it in ChatGPT. Like, come on, that's not too many cards and names and this and that kind of crap. And then it can kind of get where it's like, okay, that does look a little obnoxious. So, I asked it, hey, tone this down. So now it starts toning that down. Now, when I write something about valuation, I might crap that story and clean that up, but I've got to be careful, okay, hey, go give me some bullet points around what's happening in the valuation market and some articles. Okay, I need to go get those, but the core of that needs to still be neat, right? So it's learning how to do that.
Yeah, I think from what you're describing, I think you're using it in all the proper ways, right? You're not asking it to come up with the message. You're coming up with the message, or letting that person that you're featuring come up with the message. And you're just asking, it's like you're using it as an assistant to actually put it into the sentences and format it for you.
The way I've looked at it, right, is if I'm going to use it and was to do that, it's like if I was a professional, whatever, and I'm the CEO of a business and I'm super busy and I'm writing articles, I'm not going to proofread all that and do that stuff. I'm going to give it to my assistant and say, clean that up, or what do they call it? Copywriters. Now I'm going to give it to copy and say, hey, copy that and get it out. Nobody's sitting there at $1 million an hour level going, did I get the right I that I use? R-E or with the apostrophe or And my wife would be like, of course you're wrong. You're wrong.
No, I think that's exactly how people should be using it at this stage. And it's the whole, the large language models are evolving. They're growing. They're going to start to get capable of more. But for right now, that helps you maintain authenticity, no matter who you are and what you're writing about, is to be the one giving the direction and letting the tool act as an assistant to ensure the grammar is correct and maybe coming up with some different ways to phrase your idea in a sentence, but it's still your idea. Yeah. Very cool. I guess one more question about LinkedIn. Do you have a regimen in mind about how often you want to post and how you manage
about 3 days
making the posts? Yep. The other part was how you go about, do you think, I'm going to plan out 2 weeks at a time? Or do you just kind of do it as the idea comes to you and then make the post?
Great point. Typically on Monday mornings, it's when I'm usually my sharpest, coming out of the weekend refreshed. So I'm typically writing content. Also, no one's working, like not working, but everyone's just slammed Monday mornings. So no one's really getting to anything until noonish after. So trying to do other stuff. So it's really a good time to, so from about 6 a.m. to 8, that's actually usually when I write content.
Okay.
And that content done. And then I put it into a OneDrive, and my admin then pulls that and will clean it up, do whatever. And then I'll usually have that going out. Now, between all that, I'm going to a networking event tonight, and I went to a deal yesterday. I took pictures with everybody. So like that post, I think will go out tomorrow morning probably, and I'll whip that out from my phone.
Yeah.
Hey, had a great time. So a lot of those are on the fly as they're happening, and the content that you'll see in my page over the course of a week is usually by week, and in some instances, a couple of weeks in advance. I also have several posts kind of queued up in a database of written stuff for if I'm traveling and doing stuff and we want to stay on top of it. And then one of the things that I have her doing as well is going toward like articles and different things like that are relevant to our space. So trying to find things to keep in the background, and then we'll go write about it, get it out.
Yeah, I love that. Do you go back and look at the metrics on your LinkedIn profile to see what's working for you? Or do you just kind of have a sense as you're looking at your own feed every so
often? Yeah, it's just based on the feed. I will say this, and I'll say this right now, it sucks because I don't know what they've done, right? But now when I go into my feed, everything on my post asks me if I want to boost it. Mm-hmm. So that'd be the case. But now maybe I got in trouble. I don't know what they've done to me, but now they want me to boost everything. Right. Yeah. And so to be very candid, that part sucks because now I'm seeing that if I write anything that's relevant to my business, I'm not getting any exposure. If I write So I've actually started to lean more into the brand side and personal things like that. Right. So as an example, God bless this tragedy that just happened. But on Sunday, I posted about praying for them. That was try to get views. That was just my heart. Hey, here's what's going on. That is like, I don't know, like a 10,000 views. And, so something like that goes kind of viral, but I'm not worried about my brand. They're like, let's pray about that. But then like I did a business valuation post that I thought was pretty cool, right? Like it made sense. And it was not bad. And I posted it yesterday. I'm at like 700.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know what that is. I'm pretty sure that LinkedIn says, hey, I know what you're trying to do here. You need to give me some money.
Yes. That would be my suspicion just from patterns I see for myself and with our clients is LinkedIn's in business to make money. And so,
Oh, absolutely. I don't fault for it.
yeah, but you don't have to do it.
I'm debating, right? Like, so that's probably the next step is trying to figure that out. Am I going to start to budget each month for some additional exposure?
Yeah.
No, and honestly, I was on ChatGPT yesterday trying to like figure out best practices, ways to circumvent all that. It's funny because I'm not going to spend tons of energy trying to figure out how to crack code to not pay. It probably makes more sense just to pay for it if I think it's going to bring me value. The other question is, does that stuff really bring you? There's a lot of noise out there. So for me, I think it's a consistency thing that needs to be done.
Okay.
But I also don't have like a rhyme or, I definitely wouldn't say that I'm not an influencer, right? So, I don't have like this massive following or anything like that. So I don't think I'm an expert there, right? I've done pretty good at being able to sell through LinkedIn and build great relationships and have a pretty expansive network.
Yeah.
But, I'm not making $1 million a month on like awesome social media impact.
Right. But I think that's because you're not putting all your eggs in one basket, right? You're not expecting LinkedIn to do everything for you. And maybe that's a good transition to one of the other topics that we wanted to talk about, which is, I think you called it mastering the art of getting people in a room.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I want to hear about that. That's like a really cool phrase.
Well, getting them in the room, right? So one of the things that I've seen that's worked for me is like we did an event together and Russ Smith, you mentioned him, he's great at this, but it's getting with some peers or getting part of some local organizations that serve the people that you're trying to meet and then putting on, having a consistent flow. And now at our organization, we're actually doing monthly luncheons. So having different things that you can get somebody to. And so when I had mentioned earlier, I create these kind of LinkedIn group lists. So over time, those lists are getting consistent things, and what happens is somebody it'll go to them and they're like, oh, I can't make that one. Well, I peel that person off and put them on my own little personal list as a target. And then they get some more information from me. And so what will eventually happen is, over the course of a year, somebody might get 3 invites and eventually they get to one. Well, they've also got, like I have 2 prospects right now that are proposal stage from events that they came to that I had been gripping to get that, oh, I can't make this one, but I'll make the next one. That's been happening for over a year now. And again, because they when they do that, they click on my stuff, check on the thing. Where do they go? They go to my page. I see that they do my profile. Then they go and I'm sure they scroll through my stuff to figure out who I am, because when I meet these people at that event, they feel like they already know me.
Yeah.
Saying earlier, going back to the original discussion, the people that I'd met at these events, on the matter of shaking their hands, I've already decided, and they've decided, like, this is my kind of person. Like, It's not some random, that doesn't happen because we've already, dated electronically for a while and have tested.
You've built the relationship that way, and then you can build it in person once they attend an event.
Yes.
A really crazy statistic is that in the B2B world, only 5% of the people that you're talking to or have as part of a list, like you described, only 5% of them are actually in the market for what any provider does at that moment. So
Right.
if you keep that in context with the strategy you're describing, it's like 95% of the people you're reaching out to, they're not ready to talk to you. And they don't have the pain that connects with how you can help them, right? But that doesn't mean you stop building a relationship with them. You've got to keep an active presence with them. And I think LinkedIn, events, those are a couple of great platforms to maintain that presence and relationship until they're in that 5%, right? And
Absolutely.
they can remove themselves and never be in the 5%, or they can stay in that drip with you. And at some point they're going to reach that point.
I either want you to do business with me, become my friend, or call the cops on me. One of them. So,
I have
yeah.
a feeling that third one's never happened.
Well, or tell me to just kick rocks, right?
Yeah, there you
I'd
go.
rather
There you
go,
go.
hey, I'm never coming to anything you invite me to. So then I'm like, okay, finally, I'll quit sending it.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. That hopefully maybe ties to the Kobe Bryant trusting the process concept, right? Because we're talking about having to be consistent and relentless in sticking with a process that you developed. You may have been referring to a totally different process, but I see it here, right? Like you have to trust that that process you've designed is going to lead you to the right outcomes that you're after. And so if I'm connecting the wrong process to the concept of trusting the process, maybe you can just elaborate on trusting the
no, I
process.
think you're nailing it, right? So it's really hard. And okay, so in my business, I can get 4 prospects, and in each one of those prospects, one of those prospects becomes, or let's say 4 new clients. So they become new clients. So it's hard to dictate from those clients what's going to happen from an actual compensation perspective. And what I mean by that is some people might be completely reinvesting in their business for the next 5 years. And so do all this work, make them a client, and then you're just kind of riding beside them and you're not managing any money, any life insurance. There's nothing, but you're taking great care of them, right? One of those people might be a huge opportunity and they want to do an executive plan, and they're going to put $1 million a wage year for their people. And, wow. Oh, cool. Like, I never know, right? Like, which, I mean, the guy that I was with earlier today on paper is a ton of opportunity, right? But he's also all reinvesting in the business, in the construction. They got bonding issues, the bonding requirement. There's all these things that says, hey, I've got a lot of opportunity to be a big opportunity for you. But when that's going to happen, I don't know. Like, so so why I say that is, unlike in the fitness industry, or even in some instances where you're like, okay, this product sells this. If I sold software, it's like, okay, sell this, talk to this many people, equate this many opportunities. Our software costs this much a month. Here's how much you'll sell on software.
Yeah.
Like, I could get 4 people and make $50,000 off them, right? I could get one person to make 200. And so there's all these different variations that go into that. So I ultimately had to let that go and say, okay, I can't be married to what's going to come out of the back end of that deal, because I sell off value and needs. And so it's not like I've got one hammer and everything's a nail. I'm trying to hold their needs, especially as fiduciaries, to what they need. And then we provide the source, right? The resource.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's good commission. Sometimes that's not. So that's okay. Whatever they need. Now, I'm saying that to say this, but the one thing that's never questionable is the behaviors that I have to do here.
Got it.
Be doing all those behaviors. And sometimes that's typically how it works. It's like behavior, and then nothing. And then bang, 5 new opportunities, and guy that I did invite to that event finally dripped on him. We finally talked and he wasn't ready then. And now I'm getting a phone call. I had a guy call me. This is so cool. I had a guy who called me, didn't do business because he's not been able to get to the threshold. He hasn't been able to turn that corner mentally that says, right now, the thing about a lot of business owners is that they never really see themselves as having money, because they're constantly thinking like, it's just weird. They're making money, but then they're like, okay, but I've got to reinvest in the business and I got to do it. Like because I think they're so focused on building, they're never able to stop and say, okay, I need to think about my legacy with this. What's this going to do?
Yeah.
If I was to die, like, what happens to all these moving pieces until something urgent happens, and then they stop and pause, or until they actually go, well, I'm actually got some money. So a lot of guys do that. This guy, after 3 years, we dripped, hung out, dinner, gun shoot, at this event, I get a call from him, and he makes an introduction to a guy who was selling his business this year. And they were at lunch, and he was telling what he was going through. He says, well, you need to talk to this guy. That guy's a client. the guy that's selling the business. So
Wow.
the guy chasing for 3 years. And I was like, so you referred me into somebody, you're still out doing business. He's like, man, I can't get there yet. But when the time comes, you're my dude.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah.
like,
That's
but it's so weird, right? But I'm like, okay, well, I hit pains, I've hit these things. He just can't emotionally get there, but he sent me a referral.
right. Yeah. And so knowing that you have a fitness background too, and you have a strong faith, it's like really there's a lot of ties between what you're saying. Trusting the process is like when you said that phrase, behavior, 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 it's like you have to trust that the right behaviors and daily practices are going to lead you to the outcomes that are meant to be, that are either part of God's will or part of what the universe is wanting for you.
Yeah.
Whatever
Yeah.
your belief system is. It's like the same I have found through my own personal fitness journey. It's like if I know I get a certain amount of steps a day, I hit certain macros, I'm doing weightlifting certain number of times a week, I'm going to hit the goals that I want. I'm going to feel fit. I'm going to hit whatever my goals are. But if I start with, I want to lose X amount of weight and I just focus on that, I have found over the years, it's harder when you focus too heavily on the goal and you're constantly chasing a goal as opposed to staying consistent with behaviors.
Well, the goals too will start to
Right.
wear on you emotionally over time. And I think that if you seek joy in the process, that's the growth, right? Like for me, bodybuilding for years was less about getting to the stage. It was the discipline, it was the structure, it was the daily routine. And even though I battled injuries the last few years, the routines never changed, and it's hilarious because I get up and do like Richard Simmons workouts now, but I'm still grinding it out in the morning, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to 100-pound squats, I'm doing the little leg things because I'm beat up and old, but either way, that never left me. And it's always working. Like I used to work to get on stage. Now I try to work to try to make sure I can swing a golf club without hurting. So it's just different things.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned our faith, but I lean on two things, right? The process for me is around Colossians, it's 3:23-24, but it says, work at all things as if working for the Lord and not for human masters. So process is working. And so if the work is getting better, getting your butt kicked, but I'm doing it for God. So I don't really have to question whether, and then the other one, this is like my anchor verse from my life is Proverbs 3:5-6. It says, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, and he'll show you which path to take. So it's like, okay, so the outcome is trust, process. So, I mean, it's not hard at that point in time. And if you can I've always said, free yourself that from sales, then you have a lot more confidence in everything, because I don't really have, now don't get me wrong, as a marketer and as a professional, you're always going to question if you're getting it right.
Mm-hmm.
But the joy is like, for example, this LinkedIn thing. Okay. It's not working like it used to. Well, I'm not going to go on my brain and say, well, I guess I'm never going to get any more business from LinkedIn. It's like, okay, well, crap. I guess I got to figure out how to fix that.
Right.
So am I going to pay that? Am I going to try to circumvent it by creating another contact? Are there other places to go with marketing?
Right.
Or do it's just the never ending puzzle.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. And I think you can't, whatever you're trying to pursue, you can't lose faith in the process. And I think that's what you're saying. It's like, stay committed, but that doesn't mean that you won't have to make adjustments along the way, because you've got to keep up with how the way the world operates, where people get information. You've got to adjust to that because it's constantly changing. I want to shift gears in kind of a big way and talk about living in your calling. That was something,
cool.
That we had in our discussion notes to talk about. I just want to give you a platform to talk about that. Tell me what you mean by that and how you live that out.
Well, you're asked. So let me first of all start by saying this. I'm one of those people where my profession is not my calling. And I see people who actually are in their calling in their profession, and I love it when they're there, right? Like it's so cool. And what I mean by that is there's people that I know. My friend Catherine Brown, she is a gatherer and a connector of people. And so when she's out in the marketplace, she started her own networking thing and Good Human Growth Network. So when she goes out and does that, you're seeing her in her call. Like she's wired for that. And now she's living in it. You mentioned Rusty Smith. Rusty is amiable, coach, empathetic in my mind. So when I see Rusty as a coach, as an EOS implementer, to me, that's his call, right? Like he's in his call. I work for an organization that I love. I help people in the way that I love, but I'm not in my call, meaning I'm not like my boss is in his call.
Yeah.
Like he's got this guru financial mind, so, he nerds out in what we do, right? He's in his call is more in alignment with just, I was asked yesterday what success looked like twice, actually, what success looks like to me. For me, really, I'm kind of living it because I've got a really big network. I've got people that I love and I care about. I can, at a whim on a Friday, say, hey, I want to get a lunch together. And I can probably have 10 people in that lunch in a 48-hour notice like that and be connecting there. So I'm able to do that. And then from that, somehow business finds its way back to me. It's just, establishing what it is that you care about. And it took me losing a lot of stuff, thinking though what I cared about was like money and success and position in life and all these other things. So I had to kind of like experience the loss of a lot of that to then bounce back and go, what I really like is just people and impacting them and being in their lives. And so yes, I like money too. It helps me have an impact in other things that I want to do. But at the same time, if I'm not pouring into people and having people pour back into me and fill my cup, then I'm not living in my calling. So why I want to say that is because I think a lot of people associate their job like, okay, they're walking through life going, well, I'm not passionate. I could be out selling software. I could work for you, Terry. If I'm getting to touch people and have contact with them and build relationships and be out doing that, you could supplant the job, right?
Yeah.
Culture, as long as those things mirror and match, then I'm in my cult. And so I think a lot of people times you're looking for their job to give them fulfillment. I'm like, find your field of wherever you're at, wherever you've been placed, figure out what it is that's really your calling. For me personally, at its core, it's discipleship and men, because I've experienced that personally and it changed. And so that's where my heart lies. The organization I'm a part of, that I serve in, yes, I'm there to get business, but these people have become my friends. And now, and so I've got friends all the way back from my fitness industries 20 years ago that I talk to all the time, all the way up to people today in the M&A space and then in the construction space. So I'm getting to live, I guess, my best life. And it's not because I'm living my best life because I'm a rapper and I got a big house on the lake and I got all these other things. It's because I'm actually, when I leave the house every morning, I wake up super early, I come home and I'm not exhausted because I was working all day.
Right.
Working, but I was, growing, developing, getting in with that people. So, my encouragement for those that are listening would say is if you're waiting for your job to fill your cup, ask yourself what it is that really would fill your cup. Then ask yourself, okay, well, I'm here now. So find a way to fill it where you're at.
It sounds like you've found a really good overlap between those two things that you just described and helping business owners, connecting them, whether you can serve them or not. Knowing that you're helping them and connecting them with the appropriate resources seems to like really fill your cup, just helping people. Yeah.
Yeah. So funny story, a guy that I'm still chasing and he is, I think, going to be a client because that's what he told me. So I'm holding to it. I was at an Astros game last night and I sent him a picture because it was kind of funny, but I was like, hey, from your friends, LOL or whatever. But the two people I was with I pursued him for business. He really wasn't ready for that. But then our discovery, I found out some issues he was facing. So I made some introductions to the challenge that he had and he's worked with them first, but he's like, hey, I've got to get this done first and I got to get this done and then I'll get to you. So, but it was hilarious to know because it was ironic. We just happened to be at the same event at the Astros together. And then one of them was like, yeah, we're getting started now. And he kind of told me what he needed to do, what was his priority. So it's kind of unfolding the way that he did. And I'm like, I sent him a text, a picture, but I'm thinking like, dude,
come on.
Now you signed up with them. It's my turn. So
Yeah. You know what? I love that you're, I guess, not afraid is just the best phrase that comes to mind. I like that you're persistent about asking for the business, right? Because if you don't ask for it, you've just decreased your chances of getting it, right? But you've got to have that confidence in what you can do.
100% of shots you don't take.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. Talk to me about men's mentoring, because I assume it kind of fits with what you were just talking about.
Well, for me, it's just real simple. I think we have a systemic issue. I know I'm a byproduct of that, where either lack of male role models, and I had good male role models in my early 20s in the fitness industry. Great. But that being said, one thing that was missing was kind of a balance from a role model perspective. And if you go back and you look at a number of the challenges today, I think there's a masculinity issue that's out there that people are struggling with. And I think if you look at a lot of the way things shape out for young men, whether they got a male around their life or they don't, there's this kind of pounding your chest thing that starts early. And then it's usually played out in a couple of different ways in your adolescence, whether it's through pursuit of winning. And a lot of times that's, I'm trying to educate my daughter that a lot of guys, their mindset is, I always say is like, don't think for 1 second he's not talking about his friends about anything that happens, because that's what boys do. And that's shaped that way, right? Like, I'm not trying to be obnoxious here, but I'm just saying, sadly, if a woman is sleeping with a bunch of girls and she's young, they're going to call her a bad name. If a man's doing it with a bunch of girls and he's young, he's a champ. And so that's a problem. And so because of that culture, it becomes who has the most stuff. And then that guy's chasing the most stuff. And somewhere along the way, people figure it out. And it's usually when they get their own daughters and their own family and their own stuff. And they're like, wait a minute, that's not going to work. I don't want any of her or them. Right. So then they pivot and shift. Sadly, a lot of men don't have that resource. They just don't have it. A lot of guys have a lot of acquaintances, but very, very few friends.
Yeah.
Friends. Hey, I'm thinking about cheating on my wife, and somebody's going to go, no, you're not. Or that they could even have her call that conversation. Hey, my secretary's getting a little bit out of bounds right now, and I'm thinking about doing that. And somebody is like, no, you're not. That's just, so if you go, a lot of that's deeply rooted, the problem. And so I guess essentially just because I've had people come into my life and change my life over the last decade, like caring and loving for me as males, older one man who said, hey, this is how you need to do this. And taught me how to run a budget, taught me how to run my house, not run my house,
I know what you're saying.
not just, taught me how to love better, taught me how to care, how to be more disciplined.
Well, do you have a formal way that you mentor men? Or is it just kind of through building relationships one-on-one?
Great question. I wouldn't consider myself a mentor. I'm a man who has a lot of great relationships I like to pour into them. But I do have some people in my life I've poured more energy into, and we've developed that relationship. And in doing that, they bring value to me too. So it's not a hierarchy. And through a lot of that, there are some structural ways to go about it. The question is there a formal way? Yes. I'm part of a men's ministry that actually has a structured way of going through that and doing life with another man. And that's something that I do. And then at the same time, the informal component is being intentional, right? So meaning I have, I'm intentional about my friendships. People are in my life as much as I can. Sometimes I'm just buried, but I try to make sure, every week I try to print 10, 20 names, and then just have those names and call them, check on them, just when I'm in the car, things like that, that says you're important to me, and then try to spend as much time as I can.
That's awesome. Wow. I love that. That's a really good practice. Yeah.
Breakfast, a lot of us have jobs. So I'm like, hey, we're going to eat for breakfast. And so I probably am at breakfast 2, 3, 4 days a week with different guys. If not, who are they going to call when they're about to make that voice? They need to have somebody.
Yeah. I love that. Wow. We're at the top of the hour, Jason. Time flies.
Awesome.
That was a really awesome conversation.
Well, I enjoyed it.
And then one of the things that you and I are both involved with is the Gulf Coast Industry Association event that's going to be happening in September. I'm going to include some information about that in the show notes.
Cool.
But I'm really looking forward to that. Our company is going to be exhibiting there. I know you're a big part of that association. And
great organization, great place to exhibit, great opportunity. It's a signature place, signature event for that region. So I encourage any of your listeners to be a part of that at the Economic Alliance Houston Board region.
Cool. And Jason is also the host of their podcast. So
Yeah.
yeah, we will include a lot of links in the show notes so that people can learn more about that. But Jason, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way for someone to reach you?
Best way to reach me, find me on LinkedIn, Jason Lee, Exponent Prosperity Advisors. You'll see me on there. And then also you can email me directly, jlee, L-E-E, at exponentx.net. So that's exponentx.net. Make sure you get the X there because a lot of people miss that. Exponent X. So send me an email. I'd love to chat.
Okay. Well, I'll include those links too. So people can just click on that as they're watching or listening to the episode. But thank you so much for all of your time today. I got a lot out of this conversation personally. I'm really looking forward to sharing it.
Yeah, you're easy to talk to. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Take care.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you for listening to B2B Marketing Methods. Please be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast channel and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you and connect. You can find me on LinkedIn or visit our company website at marketingrefresh.com.